Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session Cross Media 2, How to Engage Your Audience. Some of you have been here already for the first session of Cross Media and for the network breakout. Others have joined us now, so welcome and welcome back. Please let me introduce to you the moderator of the session, which is Liz Rosenthal. Warm welcome to her.
Hello everybody, so I'm Liz Rosenthal. I run a company called Power to the Pixel, which helps film and media companies adapt to digital change and changing audiences. So I want to find out first, just who was here for the first sessions? Can you raise your hand? So tons of you. So not to sort of go backwards, but I would just want to give an introduction to the session. So apologies for the people who were here for the initial session, but just to give some kind of context to today. So these two sessions, Cross Media 1 and 2, are all about how we develop ideas today as audiences are engaging with stories and media in totally new ways. So we can't work in the same way we worked normally, where we were just singly developing traditional media products by ourselves in a very traditional way over many years without thinking about who we are developing ideas for. So in our first session, we were talking very much about the idea of creating an identity, creating a brand. How do you do that today? How you develop ideas has to be very different. And we were talking about some of the methods we use in our main development program at the Pixel Lab, about how we have to take a much more sort of user and people-centric approach to ideas development. Whereas before we've been very much, we take a platform or format-centric approach where we decide we're making one single media product, like a feature film or a television series, and we set about developing that for many years, where we develop scripts, we try and find finance, we hopefully finish the project and take it to a market, and then hopefully get a distributor for the project, who then is the person who's tasked with finding an audience. And at no point is there any audience engagement happening as we're developing the project. We leave it right to someone else at the end. And I think that's kind of hard for people in the creative industries now to think in a different way, because we've always thought that's marketing. We hand it over to someone else. We have nothing to do with it. We have the vision. We work on it and hand it over to someone who has nothing to do with the story development. I think at Pixel Lab, and what we were talking about before, was thinking about your audience has to come hand in hand with concept development, and you cannot think of it as something completely fragmented and divorced. So for this session, we're going to be looking at two really interesting projects, and the reason why I chose Timo Vuorensola from Finland, who's the creator and director of the Iron Sky universe, and Raphaëlle Huysmans, who is the producer from TOXA, whose project is FORT MCMONEY. So they're very different projects. One of them is an interactive documentary game around the oil town in Canada, and is a social impact project. It's looking at how you can use interactive tools to engage an audience. And Timo's project, the Iron Sky universe, is a fiction sci-fi project that is completely different generically, but just some of the approaches and some of the ideas are the same. And whether you're making a feature film, a TV project, or whether you're working in a new type of interactive storytelling format like Raphaëlle, you have to still think in the same way about people first. Who are you communicating with? What are their motivations for wanting to be involved in the experience you're creating? How are you going to communicate with them? On what platforms? Before you make that decision, you're just going to make a film, or we have to think very carefully about who you're talking to. So that's why I'm really delighted to have Timo and Raphaëlle here to talk about the projects. So we're going to start with Raphaëlle today, and she's going to give us a case study of FORT MCMONEY. Thank you.
Hi. So yeah, thank you, Liz. So I'm Raphaëlle Huysmans. I'm the producer of FORT MCMONEY. I'm based in Montreal. So today I'm going to present the project. It's a case study of this documentary game, as we call it. It was launched last year, in November of 2013. It's a project that was co-produced with the National Film Board of Canada in collaboration with ARTE. And it's a project that wouldn't work if it wasn't for the internet users' participation. So that's why, hence the question, how to engage your audience. When you're working on new forms of narrative, you're inventing new ways of telling a story. So hence you need to find new ways to find those users, this audience, and to engage them to participate. This audience gonna take your story and they're gonna shape it the way they want. So I'm gonna try to explain what we did to find this audience and to have them participate in FORT MCMONEY. So it all started 4 years ago when French director David Dufresne immigrated to Canada. And we met around a coffee and he told us about this crazy idea, his crazy fascination for Fort McMurray, which is a region in northern Canada. It's about 5 hours north of Edmonton, and it's the third largest oil reserve in the world. It's about the size of Florida. And he was fascinated by this vast territory, those monster trucks, which are the biggest trucks in the world. It's also Canada's economic backbone. So it's a very, very complex subject. It's not a black and white question. There are so many economic, political, environmental, and social issues, and there have been many, many films about Fort McMurray, but mostly about the environmental impact of such an exploitation, about the high cancer rate in Aboriginal population, but it's way more than that. So it's a very polarized question, and it's very easy to critique what's going on over there when you don't have all the information. So he had this idea of coupling a documentary about Fort McMurray with a SimCity-like game to give the chance to the user to control the city, to be in charge and to really see what it implies to control such a big industry. So the premise is, what if we had control over Fort McMurray? What if we gave that power to the users? So we juggled with the idea for a few months, and we came up with an even more complex idea of getting this control collective. So it would be a democratic component to the game. So the users wouldn't be alone in their decision making. They would be in a pool of many, many, many other internet users. So it kind of in a democratic setting. So from the beginning of the project, we knew there would be 3 very important things to keep in mind. First of all, we wanted to use video and photo documentary content, so real images. So even though it's a game, we didn't want to use like recomposed images, computer-generated images. It would be really real images and footage. Then we wanted the project to be an immersive and gamified experience, hence the difficulty with the real images. And we wanted a real-time collective experience, so that led all the creative process from the beginning. So our quest as creators was really to answer this question: is democracy soluble in oil? And if we gave the control to the users, would it be any different from what it is in reality? So we gave a goal to the internet users, which was make your worldview triumph. Like in any game, you need a goal to pursue your exploration. So that's a little intense, make your worldview triumph, but I'm getting there. During the production process, so we wrote the concept, which was really, really complex at the beginning, and we simplified it the more we were in the production process. We found partners, first of all, the National Film Board of Canada. We went in Fort McMurray for the first time in 2012 to do a prototype, so to test our ideas. So because the interface are real images. We had to see how we would film those images. And then ARTE went on board and we got money from the Canada Media Fund. So we went into production and went back at the winter of 2013. So it's 2 years of investigation. We really wanted to go on in an oil site. It took 2 years. We succeeded. It's 55 interviews that are available in the game from very diverse type of characters. So you have the mayor, you have the Total CEO, you have a homeless person, you have the food bank manager, so it's a very diverse array of characters. It's 60 days of filming at minus 30 degrees, and there are 8 hours of content available in the web doc in 3 languages, so in French, English, and German. So that's what it looks like to script FORT MCMONEY. So we decided from the very beginning that it would be devised in 3 chapters with 3 themes. It's 3 weeks as well. I'm going to explain that later. And because you want to give almost full control of the content to the users, you have to have a lot of content so they have the feeling that they can go wherever they want. But maybe 8 hours is a little too much, but still. So that's the first week, the first chapter, the second, and the third one. So it looks very disorganized, but really it is, even though we change ideas like a million times. So yes, we decided to devise the content into those 3 chapters. And it was very difficult for the director, even though he had produced other web documentaries before, like Prison Values, pretty famous. But to give total control to the users, I know the director wouldn't have told the story this way, in a linear way, so that's always very difficult to work with, sorry. So I'm just gonna show you a little trailer so you can see what it is.
The first impression most people have is the long drive north in the middle of the forest for a couple of hours of time, and all you see are the trees, and you wonder if there's going to be a civilization at the end. But inevitably, when we got into town, it was just better than we could have imagined.
C'est à ma connaissance une des villes qui a connu la plus forte croissance en Amérique du Nord tout au long des dernières décennies.
In short, it is an enterprise of epic proportions, akin to building the pyramids or China's Great Wall, only bigger.
Let's go to Berlin, the big boom town.
The average salary for a family is somewhere around $180,000 a year.
Everybody's living hard, drinking hard, playing hard, spending their money, and God bless them for spending their money.
We are so much more than money. We're more than oil sands. We're more than money. We're a community.
All across the globe, people are benefiting from what's happening here.
They call it development, we call it destruction.
We're proud of the oil sands and what it contributes to the nation and to around the world. We take the environmental concerns very seriously.
The oil and gas industry has fostered education, it extends the lifetime, it improves the quality of life. I'd say it's improved democracy.
Vous avez juste un employeur. Pour la Total, Synco, Syncrude, Exxon, c'est un employeur, c'est oil.
Fort McMurray is supposed to be the #1 place to make money in North America.
There's no big wealth here, except maybe in the pockets of the oil barons and their lackeys.
journalism, right? Isn't it?
So in the game, so every week you can explore the city and find clues. So in those environments, we call them 180 degrees interface, you can click on characters, you can interrogate them, you can find clues that's gonna give you the opportunity to discover more places, more characters, and more content. So when you speak to a character, you can ask them questions. That's going to lead to an answer, that's going to lead to new questions. So depending on what you choose, you're going to have different choices afterwards. So there are infinite possibilities of combination of paths. So every single user has a unique experience. Then in your dashboard, you have news. So we are constantly looking at what's happening in the real world in Fort McMurray and injecting some real-time news into the game that may change the user's opinion about what's happening. We have surveys as well just to see how you can situate yourself from the other users. And the more you explore the city, the more people you meet, the more clues you find, the more points you accumulate, influence points. So those points are going to be very important in the next part of the project, which are the debate section and the referendums. So as I told you before, there are 3 weeks, 3 chapters. So at the end of each week, there's a big referendum about what's happening in Fort McMurray. For example, should taxes on petroleum be higher? Or should there be tighter environmental controls? Or should we just shut down the oil sands exploitation? So for example, if I have 1,000 points, I'm going to have 1,000 votes. So that's why the points are so important. And you have the debate section where people can post comments for or against each and every one of those questions. So that's where the magic happens. So when the polls are closing every Sunday night, the results of those votes are going to influence our avatar of Fort McMurray. And that's Fort McMoney. So our Sim City-like city is going to evolve. So, for example, there are going to be more exploitation in the oil sands or more population, depending on the results. So those are very interesting results to look at. So Fort McMoney obviously wouldn't work if there wasn't any audience to participate and to vote and to debate. So we had to develop numerous strategies to get to the audience and to make sure they would participate and they would vote. So we had this public who is used to video games that is very different from the public who's in love with documentary. So we had to find a middle way to get them to play at Fort McMoney. But really our work really began the day it was launched to get people to play. So first of all, because we ask a lot of our users, it takes a lot of time to explore, it takes a lot of energy, you always have to be active. We really need to accompany the users into their exploration from their first click, really. So we decided to have a voice, a guide that's there from the first click and that takes the user step by step. So it's a feminine voice that's going to give hints, and she's going to give instruction to the users. So the exploration is easy. Then we decided to have game masters stimulating the debate. So we had one in every one of the languages. So their task was to answer the users' questions through Twitter, and they had to inject the news aspect in the game by reading articles from our media partners and inject it in the game. And they had to stimulate the debate, so there would be always a tension between the for and against position. So if you would see that everybody was commenting on the for section, he would try to find people who are against so they could comment and create a tension between both sides. And then we decided to create events around the cycles because it's very difficult to have game masters all year round and have the funds to pay those people. So we have what we call dormant cycles. So there's no debate section because we don't have the human resources to moderate it. So that's what's happening right now. But at the launch of FORT MCMONEY in November, it's going to happen again this spring. We have those big events where it's the full experience that's going on with the game masters and the debate. And so there are always a lot of promotion around it. And finally, the media partnerships that I'm going to explain a little more here. So we found some really, really great media partners, Globe and Mail and Radio-Canada in Canada, Le Monde.fr in France, and I'm the worst in German, so I know it's not gonna sound right, but Süddeutsche in Germany. Yeah, sorry, it's very embarrassing. So those media didn't just promote the project, they embedded the web documentary onto their homepage. They also did articles about the oil sands and what's really happening in Fort McMurray at that time. But we, most of all, had journalist participation. So for every one of those media, some of their journalists were participating into the debate. They were, as we call, super players. So they were also doing articles about what was happening in the game, what were the results of the votes. So it was a very collaborative relationship we had with them, and I think it worked. The results, so since November 2013, there was 650,000 visits on FortMcMoney.com from 425,000 players, registered players, and that's over 2 million page views. So mostly people would stay on the experience for about 15 minutes. And that's a very interesting stat for me, 7,000 comments over the course of 8 weeks, so the 2 cycles, active cycles. And those are very rich and intelligent comments for and against every single one of our questions. So that, for me, I wasn't expecting that kind of response at all. And that was from around 22,000 hardcore players, so players that would come every single week to discover new content that were very participating into the debate. Another interesting result is, well, what people would do if they were in control of Fort McMoney. So out of 21 completed cycles, 21 had the same final result, which is Fort McMoney should shut down. So I'll let you draw your own obvious conclusion. So even though the proportions were different and the survey's results were different as well, the final question, which was should we still be exploiting oil sands in Canada, it was always against. So that's it. And afterwards, after the game was launched, we decided to do a movie. A movie that's very different from the web documentary. It's a very personal approach to the director's journey through those last 4 years. So it's a linear TV movie that's going to come out on ARTE on May 5th. I think, so you're going to discover new characters and really new aspects from what's happening in Fort McMurray. So that's it.
Thank you, Raphaëlle. So we're going to come back to Raphaëlle afterwards because we're going to do Q&A after we have our next presentation with the 2 speakers. So I'm delighted to introduce Timo Vuorensola, who is the creator and director of Iron Sky. So Timo's film was premiered in the Berlinale in 2012. The project started development in 2005. And the process that Timo uses, and this is the first film in the whole Iron Sky universe, He is one of the people I think who is exemplary in how he uses and engages and works with his audience to develop, produce and finance and distribute what he makes. And he's going to talk about how he does that. So welcome, Timo.
Thank you. I came from Finland, all the way from Finland, to hear these applause. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. It's great being here. Oh, it's a presentation. Okay. Yeah, I come from Finland. Finland is obviously rather far away, but not that far away. We live 5.5 million people living in terrible conditions, horrible winter, and basically, you know, it's just darkness all over. Are there any Finns here in the audience? Well, yeah. Anyway, what we do is Finnish film industry itself is an existing industry, but there hasn't been that many big successes from Finnish film industry, especially in the field of genre filmmaking. And I started to do my first Finnish genre film called Star Wreck in 1998. It was released in 2005 for free on the internet, and it became the most viewed film from Finland because it was available for free. People were able to download it, and we got like 8 million views to the film pretty fast. Then we started to work on another idea. Because one of the things we do here in Finland is we go to sauna a lot. After every shooting day, there's usually a sort of a sauna with some, shooting group and all that. And we were working on my previous film, and a friend of mine said that he had this idea, in a dream actually, that he wants to make a film about Nazis on the dark side of the moon. And we thought that that's a ridiculous idea, and obviously fell in love with it. And we did that film. It was another 6 years. 2012 we released here in Berlin, and what we basically were doing, it's not just about, because when I started to work on this idea about Nazis on the moon, my first question was then, okay, let's assume there are Nazis on the moon. Where does this lead to? And that was my sort of like the most interesting question that was driving me forward. I wasn't interested in doing a movie about Nazis on the moon. I was interested in exploring what would it mean historically, what would it mean scientifically if it was true that there are Nazis on the moon. And it's a comedy, but I took it very seriously, the whole topic. And that's the reason I started to create not the film, but a universe. And this is actually something that I'm talking about here, is especially branding the whole thing. Not just looking, like Liz was talking actually earlier on about not focusing just on a film, but actually my interest is much wider. I want to explore the world where there are Nazis on the moon in anything that it makes sense, but I don't want to make it a list of platforms where I have to launch. I've done it also, it's not the best way to do, but I wanted to say, okay, Nazis on the moon, if there's a film about it, then there's got to be maybe a TV series about it where we can explore some of the characters, some of the history more. Then I wanted to do graphic novel because that's a great way to tell backstories and stuff like that. So we did Iron Sky, released it, and now we're working on another one. It's called Iron Sky, The Coming Race, which explores the whole birth of humankind. The story takes place 65 million years in the past, and from there on we move forward. Basically, Iron Sky, The Coming Race is the name. In short, Indiana Jones meets Jurassic Park goes Iron Sky, and I'll show you a little trailer so you get an idea what it means.